everyone, I'm Donelle McAdams. I'm an accredited teacher with Westerly Design Templates, and I'm here today with you from the Quality Sew and Vac in the state of Washington. And I'm really excited to be here and show you how to use the templates. So without further ado, let's get started because I've got a lot of information to share. So as we're getting set up here, I want to show you the templates that we're going to be using. These are the ones from Sampler Set 1, and just give us just a second to get this in the holder. While we're doing this, you can put on there your name and where you're from. We're going to have door prize drawings today, so the more you comment and the more you share, and giving us thumbs up and likes puts you in the drawing more times. So I'm really excited to share with those of you in the state of Washington. I'm actually in Indiana, so my day's about half over, whereas you're just kind of getting started with it. And so thankful for the people at Quality who invited me to do this. So I'm going to show you some things first. I'm going to mention that if you are on the page that has the links, there are a few handouts that you would probably want to go over and download. And this is one of them. This is going to tell you about stable tape placement. If you can't get it, you can get it later, but it's just nice to have something to take your notes on. This is another one. This is the Introduction to Basics of Template Quilting. And then the third one is, I'm just going to call it a wish list or a shopping list. And so that way you will be able to kind of make a little tick mark or something out to the side so that you'll know what things you're interested in. So those are the three handouts that were attached to this Facebook Live. And for those of you that may have to leave on us early, because I'll tell you, I've got like 3 days of information I want to share. And if you have to take off to go do something, don't worry. It will be right here on this site for you to view again, because most of you probably want to view it again anyway. So a couple of you out there, if you want to give me some thumbs up, I want to make sure the volume's okay and then you're hearing all right and that everything is good. So I have some people from Quality on the line too. I'm not sure who's all on there. They can chime in, and I believe Stacy from Sew Steady is also on here. So we have people who can answer questions. I will be checking the questions periodically and answering them live here. So if you have a question at any time, don't hesitate to type it in and let us know what that question is. Now, before I get started, I'm going to tell you a couple of resources besides your Quality Sew and Vac Facebook page that you would want to get signed up on. So if you will sign up on the Sew Steady Facebook page and the Westerly by Me Facebook page, those are two great resources for helps. Ever since the shutdown in our country, Sew Steady has been doing every day except for maybe 2 or 3 in the last couple of weeks, but we've been doing it every day since like March 14th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. We have been doing a Facebook Live, and you will find those, most every single one of them is still on the site if you just go to the Sew Steady site and click on videos. There are also some out there on the Westerly by Me. That's a resource too where you can ask questions and people will give answers to that. And so those are two sites. I'd also encourage you to sign up on the SewSteady.com, not sign up, but go to the SewSteady.com website, because that's where you're going to be able to see all of the catalog and everything that's available. So do we have any questions yet?
No question. Oh, the printouts. Can you tell us again? Catherine wants to know where the printouts are again.
The printouts are on the event page for this event. So if Reva's on, maybe she can give you a better direction or a link to that so that you can get those printed out. All right, we're going to move on, and I want to get started by telling you some of the basics of the things that we're going to be talking about. And as I said, you can see the templates here. They're right there so that you can see what they really look like. You have a handout. I'm going to pick these up because we're going to be talking about the table first. So I'm going to lay this over to the side, and I'm going to move this out of the way. This was a sample that we did. This is a sample from what we did just a couple Saturdays ago on the Sew Steady page. So if you want to learn how to do that, the instructions for that would be on that page. So for our convenience, with this machine, I'm working on a Janome M7. This comes with a nice extension table that would be white in color. It's a very nice flat surface for you to work with. But it's really nice to have a larger table. Not everybody likes to have a cabinet or doesn't have the room for a cabinet. I actually have a cabinet. This table, this machine would fit down into it, but I prefer to have it up, and I like my nice large Sew Steady table. You can't even see it all here in the screen because this is the Wish table, and this one is 22.5 by 25.5. And I'm going to tell you right now, Quality has it at a great price. And these are normally $199. And I'm going to tell you some of the features, and then I'm going to share that great price with you. So you'll see over here I've got this nice big blue drawer. And so this nice big blue drawer is going to allow me to have nice storage on my table where I can keep things like my feeder over here. I've got my screwdriver. I've got my circle sewing tool, which I need to get out because I'm going to be using that. And then I've also got my needle plates. There's 3 different needle plates that come with this particular machine. Now what I can do, and I don't have my light here, but what you can do is Sew Steady has what is called a light stick. And you can actually put that light bar underneath your table here, and it plugs into a USB. So if your machine has a USB, you can plug it into the machine, or you can just use an adapter and plug it into the wall. And this will allow this whole end of this table to be a light table. So rather than having to go to the window or trace or purchasing of an expensive light box, you can actually use this as a light table. And the beauty of that is you're going to get that as an extra feature. You're not going to have an extra something sitting around, and it stays right under there and it's not in your way, because we don't need light under here except for anything besides like transferring designs or something like that. So that's the beauty of that part of the table.
We've had a question. Does this fit brother machines?
Great question. I always forget to tell you. You can see this is custom cut right here. All of these tables are custom cut. So like when you go into Quality and say, hey, I want to get a table, very, very seldom are they probably going to have it in stock. It's going to be something that you're going to be ordering because every table is custom cut. Sew Steady has the forms that will cut for all machines. I have one for my featherweight machine. They even make a black one called the Classic that has beautiful gold on it that is for the featherweight, so it really complements that featherweight. But yes, these can be made for any machine, and there are a lot of different sizes. But with the great price that they have right now, this being regularly $199, that table right now is $149. That is an awesome price for this table. Normally at $149, you would get a smaller table with no drawers and no sewing features like I'm getting ready to show you. So one of the things you need to do with your table right out of the box is you need to put on it some table polish. Now this is called table and insert polish. I think you can see that right there. And I've already polished mine up today. They come with a little cloth like this, and you just put like a quarter-size dot, and then you're just going to polish your table all up. And so this is something that really makes it so it's really smooth and your fabric will just glide right across it. So that's table polish, and that's on your shopping list. And I would recommend anybody that has a table, even the one that comes with this machine that's a white table, I would recommend you polish that up. Another feature is our circle sewing features. Now this is a circle sewing tool, and you'll see that there's two little tabs right on the bottom sticking out. Those are going to go into those holes that are drilled into the table. And then the other end of this is like a thumbtack. And we just put a pin more on it so we don't get attacked by the thumbtack. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this works. And I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to put it in to make a circle. This will be the center of my circle. And we are going to stitch that just by using a regular straight stitch at this point. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to put down a stabilizer. And I like to use what's called stitch and ditch. It's very much like exam room paper. One side is smooth and the other side is kind of a matte finish. And believe it or not, we don't want the smooth side down to the table because we just polished it up, and they tend to like each other way too much and they won't rotate. You could even use something, you know, like a lightweight stabilizer. I have used in a pinch a piece of copy paper. So whatever, you just want it so that it's going to be smooth and go around there. Well, that's really sticking down. So let me see if I can get that. There we go. And so now I'm going to put down my background fabric. This is not something that you're going to do through a heavy batting or with a heavy piece of fabric. You can use it through batting, but you make sure you're using it in small background pieces because it won't turn a whole quilt. And then what I'm going to make the stars, isn't that the coolest fabric? We could do some pretty cool things with that. But what I'm going to do is to make my circle is I have fused Heat and Bond Light to the back of my fabric, and you can see that little bit of shine there to it. And the reason I do that is not only after we're all finished that we can then cut that up against there very easily, but when we're finished with our total design, we will then be able to press that and it will be a whole lot more secure. Now it looks like maybe my circle is, yeah, it's too big. So I'm going to push this in just a bit. Let me take that off. I'm going to get a different piece of paper because that's hugging that way too much. So I'm just going to get a piece of, like I said, copy paper. And we'll put this on here. And when I get this all set, my machine thinks it's doing a straight stitch. Now when I put this down, I don't want it tight. I just want it on there because I want this to be able to go around. So I just wanted to check, yeah, I've got that right. So now all I'm going to do is put my foot down, and we're going to just sew a simple straight stitch around here. So this is almost like a look ma no hands trick, and I do love to do this with kids when I'm working with my 4-H kids. This is something that they use to embellish their fabrics before they actually make a project, such as like a pillowcase or a pillow front or something like that. So now that I've got back around, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my scissors to cut. And all I did was that's cutting my threads. And then I'm going to take my applique scissors. And when I'm doing this, I like to go in this direction because it leaves just the right amount. These are my little 4-inch. And you can see right there, I've just got just a little bit of fabric around there. And it just makes it so much easier when I use them this way. If you go the other way, you can't see as well, plus the fact that it cuts a little bit too close. Now I'm not going to cut all the way up there because I've got samples I'm going to show you, but I'm going to take this over and I'm going to my decorative stitches on my machine, and I'm going to select one of those, and we won't take the time to change the threads today, but I just want you to see what this would look like if we were stitching this with a decorative thread. So again, I always like to put my foot down first, and you can see again, it will go in reverse, it will go forward, because the machine thinks it's sewing a straight line. And the only reason it's not is because it's on this pivot point right here. And so it's really not raw edge applique because of the fact that it was a raw edge, but we're putting a decorative stitch over the top of it. Now, for those of you that don't have a wish table, or you don't have one that has the holes in it, obviously at that great price, I think it would be an awesome investment. But if that's not going to work for you, and maybe your machine is in a cabinet, I'm going to show you our circles and straights tools real quickly. Now, I'm not going to set it all up, but I am going to show you how it works, because you can do the same concept with that. So I'm just going to cut that thread and turn this back around so you can see my decorative stitching there. So if you didn't have this table, let's just pull this whole thing out away from here. What you would get would be called our Sew Steady Circles and Straights tool. And this is one of those things that sells like crazy at shows, because people come up and they can't believe that any machine will do this. So you're going to get a mat that looks like this. And on the back there is a peel off, and you can see mine's a new mat here, and I would peel this off, and I'm simply going to save that to put back on there, and I'm going to set this underneath my foot, and I'm going to line it up with the lines that are going to be straight up and down and side to side. So at this point, when I'm measuring, if I wanted a 5-inch circle, that means it's 2.5 inches from my needle, I would take this particular piece that comes with it, and on there are etchings. There's an etching coming up and down from the pen and out from each side. And I'm going to line this etching up with the number that I want. Now on the back of this, there's also a peel off, and this is super, super sticky. So what I recommend that you do is that you, first of all, polish your mat, because that will save it from this thing clinging so much to it. So you can see as I pull this off, I'm going to save that little piece, because what I would be doing would be to set this down. If I wanted the 5-inch, I'm going to set it down so it lines up this way and this way. The nice thing about it is, if you want a 5-inch, you're going to line it up on the 4-inch, this edge over here, because that's a 1/2 inch each way. And I would put my fabric on there just like I did, and it would circle around. Now, these are over here so that I can easily lift up on this and move it. The reason it's called circles and straights is because if I wanted to do something over on this side, let's say I just wanted to sew an even 1-inch hem on something, or maybe I wanted a 1/2 inch, or maybe I want to come in right beside my foot. Wherever I put that, that gives me the straights part of this, and it makes it so much easier to keep something straight. Now I will tell you a hint, when I pull this up, I find it's easiest to remove this by taking the mat off first, and that will just pull everything up, and then you can easily pull this off. And I saved my little piece here, so I put that right back down on that so it stays so that it clings. And then I'm going to pull this up. So that's the way that you can have circle sewing without having a table like this.
We have a great question from Debbie. Do you need the paper attachment with this tool as well?
The paper? You mean the fabric?
No, when you had the paper underneath it first.
Right, as a stabilizer. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I like to have that stabilizer most often. I mean, most of the reason for that is it's because it's for the fabric. So yes, that's a great question. So that's the circles and straights. That's the use of how we do our circle sewing with our table. And I will tell you that I have a ton of projects. She's going to hand me the stack right now that I can quickly go through. Don't need the one on the top. There we go. So this is a project. You can see the decorative stitch. I pulled out most of the stuff on the back, but interestingly enough, this was fabric that was done so that I didn't do any of this. I just cut these out, sewed a straight stitch around and a decorative stitch. And you can see what that's like. If that's not a cheater quilt, I don't know what is. And it really makes it so that I could then go back when I get this all together and do my template quilting. So that's one thing that I did with my circles and straights. This is a placemat. If you go on to Sew Steady's website and search back, you will find that this will be on here. We did the different designs and border treatments for our templates, and then we did a focal fussy cut, and then I laid that down and did it as a circle and did the embellishment there. I want to hold that up real close so that you can see what that looks like. So it's really easy, but a whole lot of fun too. This is another one that this could be done all over a quilt. But you notice that I have got some that have stitching, some that have fabric, some that are cut out on the inside. So a lot of different things that you can do. I'm going to show you just one more because this was done with, I have a pattern that is called, oh, that's terrible. It's a table mat that is done in the pinwheel type effect here. And so this one was done as a fan design. And these here at the bottom are, I'm going to show you a little bit later, some samplets of template quilting, because this was put underneath the fabric. And then we did the template quilting, and then we cut this out. Now these are actually from the AccuCut, so I used a combination of it. But what I want to show you the most is I just love this center. Look at that center done with the metallic thread and then a decorative stitch around it. I could never have sewn that straight myself. So that's part of the beauty of having that circles and straights. All right, do we have any questions? Because if not, we're moving on.
I do think we have one on the circle and straights. I think they want to know if the straight guide is available by itself.
Not at this time, but you might let Sew Steady know that you would be interested in that. And I will tell you, as we get ready to set up for our template quilting, that mat is just like this grid glider here. When we're doing our quilting, we do need a grid glider. This is the same type of thing, only larger. I've already pulled the back off. I'm going to pull it into place here, line it up side to side and front to back. So now I can use this all the time. I do not have to take this off when I want to do something where I'm using my feed teeth. So I have that on there, just like that. And the other thing with this is when the back gets dirty, you can hear that as I pull it up. That's a cling, but when that back gets dirty, you can simply rinse it, just like the yellow one. You can rinse it in warm water and that will clean it off. Or take a lint roller and roll that on the back and that will do that too. Only time I do that is when I forgot to clean it the night before.
Show them again. I didn't have it in the screen when you were lining it up.
Okay, so what I did was I just pulled this underneath my foot and I'm lining it up front to back and side to side so that my needle is in line this way and front to back. So now if I wanted to do something an exact 2 inches away, I can do that either way because everything is lined up. So this is my grid glider. Whether I have this table or I'm working on a different type of table, I need to have a grid glider. I will tell you real quickly while I'm getting my supplies out here to get things set up. I had a lady at a show once who accumulated in her basket like $300 worth of stuff, but she was not going to buy a grid glider. And I said, well, you really might as well put everything back and I'll start helping you. And she said, no, I want this. And I said, I'm just telling you, it's not going to work without a grid glider. And she said, well, I'm going to give it a try. Well, let me just say that was at a show that was about 60 miles from another show that was 3 weeks later. And 3 weeks later, she showed up to tell me that, yes, that's what she needed. So I will say you're going to have so much more success if you'd use the right supplies. And while I say that, probably a lot of you, and you can give us some thumbs up if this is you. I'm just taking my foot off right now, so don't It's not like it's real important to that. But some of you out there probably already have some templates. And like I said, you can give a thumbs up or whatever. And some of you may be like me, who put them in a drawer and like 6 months later was like, I probably should get those out and check them out. Well, what I'm going to tell you is when I was given the templates, I really had nothing to go on. I didn't know anything about a glider. I didn't know anything about stable tape. I didn't know any of the things I'm going to tell you. So when I first started, it was a long time before I got a good grasp on it. What I'm going to tell you guys today is that what I'm showing you is going to be a kickstart for what you're doing. So what we're going to do is I am going to first show you the foot. This is the westerly foot that fits this machine, and this is the foot that comes with this machine, which is a ruler foot, and that's the one I'm actually going to use. But for those of you that don't have one, I need to show you how you would use this foot. I need my piece of fabric. Things keep walking away from me today. Well, anyway, I will show you how that this goes on. So this particular machine takes a high shank foot, and I'm simply going to take this screw out of the back here that holds this together, and I'm going to put that screw into place. And I did that because I just want to kind of hold it there. I'm not going to tighten it completely. You can see that it's not completely tight. When you find it, I have one that has black on both sides, and that's really the one I need. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to be following the instructions, and what I was starting to say there was the fact that if you don't have instructions like I'm going to give you today, it would be pretty much like getting your first bike at the age of 3 or 4, and your parents taking all the pictures and you getting all excited, and then they walk in the house and leave you out there all by yourself. And you know as well as I do that even at age 10, you probably still wouldn't be riding the bike unless some of your friends came along and filled in the gaps that your parents forgot to tell you. So what I'm going to be telling you today is going to be your kickstart to get you going on this. Now, you don't have to practice for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. You're going to get a little bit of a feel for it, and I want you to remember this. When you first start, it's techniques that you're going for, not perfection in your stitches. That won't come immediately. So just learn the techniques and then the stitching will come. So what I'm showing you right now is the machine setup for this foot. So like I said, this is what a ruler foot looks like. We actually have 4 different feet that fit over 7,000 machines. So this is what the feet look like. The one I have in my hand one I've got on my machine looks like this right here. So let's say that this machine did not have this ruler work foot. What I would be doing would be putting the foot on so that it was loose. And when you put that foot on loose, you want to be so it goes up and down, but not so much side to side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to set the foot down on the fabric, and wherever it kind of likes to be, because you saw it kind of moved on its own, then that's where I'm going to tighten it up. Now I'm not going to make it super tight yet, because in this case I haven't even lowered my feed teeth. So I've got to go in and I've got to do that. So if your machine is a button, so it lowers with a button, you're going to go to that. In my case, mine is all automatic. So when I put this foot down, I'm going to give it a try over here on the corner of my fabric. The feed teeth are down. You notice that big difference in space when I put the feed teeth down. And I want that thread underneath my foot. And I'm just kind of going to start stitching and see what happens. Ooh, I need to slow that speed down. About half speed. We'll talk about that in a minute. And on this one, this foot actually needs to go lower, because watch when I pull this up. the fabric kind of jumps out with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this screwdriver and I'm going to put that foot down even farther, and I'm going to tighten it up, and you're going to test again. But since this one, I'm going to use a different foot, I'm not going to take the time to get this one all ready, although it looks like it is because I don't have any skip stitches. I'm simply going to cut this thread, and I'm going to put the foot on that is for this machine. Now, some machines come with a ruler work foot, and notice I said ruler work foot. I didn't say free motion. There is a huge difference. We need to have one that has this enclosed opening, or some of them have just one little opening in the front, but it has to be a high wall foot so that it goes around your templates. It can't be just a little flat piece. And you need to have the needle centered. So if when you get your foot set up it's not centered, you need to center that in that opening. Now this is kind of hard for me to see and tighten, so let me bend down here and get it going. Some of the feet, as you'll notice this one when I showed it to you, they look like they're going to be crooked. They look like they come around at an angle, but when you get them on there, they're not. And in the case of this particular one, it's always going to be centered because this one was made for this machine. And so it's going to be centered, and I don't need to do anything else with it. But just remember, there's a foot to fit any of your machines. So now that I've got that set up, this machine would be ready to go. Now for those of you that have the Janome M7s or the 9450s or the 9400s that are upgraded or the 15000s, you're going to have that foot. And you're going to use the ruler work setting. You're going to be touching that little t-shirt and then going into the ruler work setting. In this case, I've got a lightweight bat. This happens to be a Quilter's Dream bat. And I have a lightweight bat that has, so you're going to set it on the medium setting. So I think it's about time for a door prize, and Megan's been spinning the wheel over here from your comments, and so she's going to pull out one. And the first one I actually don't have here, but So Steady is giving away a glider. So you're going to get the green grid glider that I have right here. And so Megan, you want to pull out one of those names? All right. Debbie Whalen. Debbie Whalen. You're going to be the winner of the grid glider. So if you'll just write grid glider on there, that would be great. So keep those comments coming because she's adding the names. She's a school teacher and she's got this crazy way of doing it so that it's not so time consuming. So we have a lot of fun with prizes, and we've got a whole pack of prizes here that we're going to give away. All right, so I'm going to jump back over to the templates real quick. So this page right here you can see. And when you purchase a foot, if you don't have to buy a foot, you're going to buy just the template that goes with the foot there, because these two actually come together. And if you are looking at your set over here, your sets that are along here, you would only need one of these that's in this area right there. So this is telling you the high shank and all of that, and that's where you can find, we've got a list that tells what those are, and you can find that out by talking to them at Quality, or you can actually, I think when you order, put it right in there what machine you have, and they'll figure out what foot you need. So anyway, that is what you're going to get in that starter pack. And then the bottom here is the sampler set. And so on that same handout, you're going to see right there in the middle where it says Sampler Set 1. And so Sampler Set 1, you would just need to know again what machine, or whether you have a high shank or a low shank. There are a few machines that have a medium shank, but they all take low shank templates. Now I'm going to really quickly, and I know we're telling a lot of information at once. Megan just reminded me, obviously, we also have long arm templates. So you would use the machine foot that you have and use the long arm templates. They're thicker. So we have 3 sizes of templates, 4 sizes of feet. Templates are low shank, high shank, and long arm. And a medium shank and a low shank both use low shank templates. Now I'm going to quickly tell you something that will work, and I'm saying this because we want to be able to invest in as many templates as we can. And so if you have a high shank machine that you quilt on, and you have a low shank machine, you can use low shank templates on a high shank machine. So if you had two different machines, one low, one high, you could use low shank templates. You cannot use high shank templates on a low shank machine. I tell you, I would find the machine I like the best and what works the best and buy the templates for that machine. Now, if you have a high shank machine and you do not have a low shank machine, I would buy high shank templates every day because they're easier to work with on a high shank machine, that's for sure. So that's that little bit about that. The little white pieces that you see here, that's what's called stable tape. And stable tape is a tape that allows you to have control of your templates. And when I say control of your templates, you don't want them slipping and sliding all over the place. And stable tape comes in a strip like this. It's also on your sheet there. And when I go in to teach a class, some people are a little eager beaver, and they don't know what they're doing, but they want to pretend they do. And they will take a whole 6-inch piece of this and put it right down the center of their template. And that's not going to do you much good because that makes you a teeter-totter from side to side. So you just want 1/2-inch pieces around the edge like that. You're not going to have guides like this. You're going to get used to where they're supposed to go. But I think this is the best positioning on that sampler set, and that's why I wanted you to have the handout. Now, this is a double-sided or a double-stick tape, so when you peel the back off, this will stick to your templates. So what I'm telling you is don't do what I did, and the first time I did this, I thought, okay, well, I got this figured out, and I cut all of this in 1/2-inch pieces. And then I spent the next 45 minutes with the end of a seam ripper trying to get this stuff apart. So I would recommend you lay your templates out like this and then cut the pieces, peel more tape, cut the pieces, and put them on. And it makes it so much quicker and faster. Now, down here in the corner, you'll notice that this spiral template, I have so that you put tape on both sides. And I hope to have time to show you a design today with that. But this is my spiral template, and I have the template tape on both sides. And the reason for that is the rest of these templates, if you flip them over, they don't look any different. But this particular one, when you flip it over, that moves this little crook here that's going to fit around your foot to the other end. And as you get going, you're going to learn how to manipulate that, so that might not be necessary. But when you're a newbie, you're going to want to be able to flip that template. And you'll notice that on 3 of my templates in my sampler set, I have a rectangle drawn around them, and that's because I use what's called RNK tape on the gate. And you can see that gate piece right there. And so if I was doing a circle design and I stopped and I wanted to merge it with another design without breaking my thread, then I can just simply pull up on this, and you can see that's a good strong tape there. That's a new piece. I can simply pull up on this and take that piece out, pull it out from around my foot, put a new template back in, and if it had a puzzle piece, then I put it right back down. So I can use this over and over. So that pink tape goes on the top, and the stable tape goes on the back. So what is that pink tape? Well, it is called RNK Perfection Tape, and it looks just like this. And Megan, if you want to pull out another name, she's been quickly writing a bunch over there, we're going to give somebody a perfection tape. And so now this particular tape works perfect. I've tried painters, I've tried everything under the sun, I think. And then I went back to my sewing room and thought, well, that was crazy. That's an embroidery tape. I use it all the time, and in the hoop embroidery, why didn't I think of that? So John Sherry Freer. It's probably Sherry, maybe it's John, I don't know, but the Freers are now going to have a perfection tape. So that's the winner of the perfection tape. So that's this handout showing you how to prepare your templates. Any questions, Megan?
No, but they are loving to know where they can put their tape. A lot of them have said they didn't know where, and now they've got a guide.
Good. I know that for me, when I first started, I had to kind of learn. Everybody said, well, put it where your fingers are going to be. Well, sometimes on this one, my fingers are in that place. Sometimes they're in another. And so that's why I made this, because after a while, you'll get the hang of this, and you'll know where you want it on your templates. So what we're talking about on this page is the related items to this. So I've already talked about an extension table. And remember, I'm talking about those things that if you had a new bike and nobody showed you how to use it. So that's why I'm taking the time to go through this. We've talked about an extension table. We've talked about a glider. We now need to talk about what's called a crosshair grid. And on your supply list, that crosshair grid is on there, but this is what a crosshair grid is. And so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in just a few minutes is I'm going to be doing a design. So I'm simply going to set this here, and I am going to take my marker, which I'll talk about in a minute, and I'm going to draw through there, and this simply allows me to have that crosshair. Now I don't have something small enough to fit in the hole that's going to be the center, so I just use the edge and cross those lines. Now I'm going to say something that's going to sound like what your parents told you when you're kids. It's like, well, back when I started school. Well, this is kind of that way, because back when I started doing this 5 years ago, we didn't have a crosshair grid. And so when we would do a design that had 8 places on it, or heaven forbid 32 lines, because I can take this and rotate it and line up my lines that are etched on there, and now I get more lines, and you'll see some designs in a little bit that are going to show you. You couldn't do that accurately, so this makes it so much easier. So that's what a crosshair grid is. And then something else that we will need to know about is a little bit about needles. Now I'm going to take just a second and talk about it because it's super, super important. And we recommend when you're using 40 or 50 weight thread, which is all-purpose thread, that you use a 90 top stitch needle or a jeans needle. A jeans needle would be in a pinch. Now on my Janome machines, and even on some of my others, I use the purple tip Janome needle. And so I was away. We don't have a Janome dealer here in my town, so I was away last weekend, and I went to a Janome store, and I stocked up on the purple tip needles because that is what I use almost all the time. There's something about the head of that needle that makes it so much easier for your thread and your fabric and your batting and everything to work together. So that's a recommendation on that. The quality thread, I'm going to talk a little bit about sizing and whatever, but quality thread is really important, and most threads are of good quality anymore. If you pull it out and it's been in your stash for 50 years and it was in Grandma's stash before your stash, then it may not be thread you want to put into your quilt. But most threads nowadays are quality. When I first started sewing over 50 years ago, that wasn't the case. There were some pretty shoddy threads out there, and so we just want to make sure we use good quality thread. Now, when I am quilting, I like to use 40-50 weight, but hey, if I find a 30 weight that I want, I just go up to 100 needle, size 100 needle, and I use that thread. And so as you progress in your abilities, you're going to find that you're going to mix and match threads. I'm not a person that says every thread has to be 100% cotton you put in a quilt. I look at quilting as an art form, and if I want to use polyester, I will. If I want to use rayon, I will. I'll use all different kinds of threads, but I need to make sure my needle works with that. So I want to show you a little bit about needles, and so real quickly I'm going to talk about what a needle, how it interacts with your hook on the bottom to form the stitch. And that's why people get mixed up in having problems with skip stitches, is because they don't have the right needle with the right thread with the right tension. And so I have a needle here, It's a little overstated, but it's going to show you what this is all about. So here's the eye of my needle. In a top stitch needle, it is oval like this rather than just round. And so the front of this is called, here down the front, this is just a groove that your thread fits in. And on the back, we have what is called the scarf. And so this is where your bottom thread gets picked up. And if you don't have the right size of this thread, or the scarf, that works with the thread that's working here, they don't get picked up in the right way. And so that's why needle and thread size is so important. And of course, threads could not get with needles. Needles, low numbers mean small eye. High numbers mean large eye, larger groove in the front, all of that. On thread, small numbers mean heavy thread. So if you have a 30 weight thread, it's a heavier thread than if you had an 80 weight thread, which is a very thin and fine thread. So you have to work your needles with your thread. So that's real important to know. Now, while I'm talking about this, I want to tell you just a bit about piecing.
They wondered if that was a demonstration needle. Yes, it is.
I used to carry it with me in my suitcase, but TSA has gotten too picky. So anyway, yeah, it's a demonstration needle. Going back to thread, when you're piecing, we want as flat a seam as we possibly can so that we can quilt over it. And if you piece with 40 or 50 weight thread, you're going to have a thicker seam, and when your foot gets to it, it's not going to glide over it. So I recommend that you quilt with 40, 50. You can quilt with anything you want. But piecing, it's best to piece with 60 weight thread, either both on the top and bottom, or 60 weight on the top and 80 weight in the bottom. And so you're going to have several sizes there that you're going to be working with, but I will tell you, when I was doing a mystery quilt that had like 64 half square triangles in it, when I got that pile of 64 half square triangles, you know how we do as quilters, we pile them up so all the seams are in the middle. The middle there was not near as high as it normally would have been because I used 60 weight thread in my piecing. So I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. If you don't have as heavy a thread, you're going to have a more accurate 1/4 of an inch when you press. So another thing to make that even better is the fact that you can use a wool pressing mat when you're pressing, so you're going to get a good quality steam, and the heat is really going to work well with that. Now, if you've already done a quilt and you want to do some machine quilting over seams, what you're going to want to do is to give it a good press on a wool mat with steam, and then you're going to use something like this, which is called a seam roller. Now, they come in wooden, they come in all different ones, but after you've pressed it, you're simply going to roll this across those seams. And so if I was doing this one and I was stitching in the ditch, I could just roll it right down that seam after I pressed it. Now this one, I pieced, if you shut your eyes and that's kind of funny because here I am with my eyes shut. How many of you shut your eyes? But if you shut your eyes and run your finger across this, you really can't tell which side has the seam pressed to it, even though this side right here has this layer, the 2 layers of the seam, and this one over here just has the 1 layer of the background. That's because I pieced that with 60 weight thread on the top and the bottom, but like I said, you could use it just in the, you could use the same, or you could use 60 in the top and 80 weight in the bobbin. And I noticed that on Quality's website there, they have bobbins that are already pre-wound of those different threads, and you can actually just use those bobbins. Now, when I tell this at a show where there are people who are like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I've already got all 258 colors of some quality, or some type of thread, and now you're telling me, I said, now wait a minute, think about this. When you piece, you really only need like 4 or 5 colors: black, white, natural, gray. That's really about all you're going to use. So if you're investing in 60 or 80 weight thread, that's the way I would do it. We have a question?
Nope.
Okay, so we're going to go on here with this. That's about your threads. A comfortable chair. I'm going to say this, and you'll remember it because of how I said it. I like to sew high. And so when I say that, I like to be able to get my seat high. I'm sure they sell good, great chairs at Quality. Go in and test them out. Get a comfortable chair, but get one that raises up so that you can get to a good height when you're sewing. A comfortable chair means everything. I have told so many people before that if you're still sewing on a four-legged dining room chair, treat yourself now. You don't need a reason. You already have a reason. Get yourself a good, comfortable chair on rollers. An iron off or washout marker. I'm going to quickly go through this because this is extremely important to me. I don't like to have to fuss with my projects after I'm finished with them. I want to be able to just turn around and get the lines out and move on. I don't want to have to launder or wash or do all of that. So I'm going to take just a second to show you a little bit about that information. So the marker I had before when I did this is a clover marker. And I have emptied out the chalk in it as soon as I got it, and I refilled it. There's several different ones. I think there's one called Miracle Chalk. It's probably on your shopping list there. There's another one that is called Pounce Iron Off Chalk. And when you make these marks, and I'm just going to make one right here that I'm not really going to use, and because I don't want to move it out of your vision, I'm just going to put my little pressing mat underneath there. And I've got my little iron here, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and you can see how easily that ironed off. So that is going to iron right off. So anything that you can see the white on, you're not going to have any problems with. Now the other thing about this is if you want to use chalk and you're going to mark on a light colored fabric, you can mix about two teaspoons of white chalk, the iron off, with 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Mix that up and then fill that in here. Now it's not going to take all of that. And then you're going to make your mark, and before you press, you're going to simply take a brush and brush the cinnamon off of your fabric and then iron the chalk out. So that will work. Now another thing, and I didn't have, well, maybe I can do this piece. You want to take that out of there, and I'll just use that piece of fabric. I forgot to bring a light colored fabric because I wanted to show you markers, and this will make you dizzy looking at that. But when you're working with markers, there's all different kinds out there, and there's all different kinds of stories. And what I'm going to tell you is going to be what works for me. Now, I've actually got on my Facebook page, All Things Sewing and Quilting Quilting and Sewing with Donelle McAdams. There's about a 7-minute video that you can go and watch, and I don't want to take all the time to go into that, but I'm going to show you, this is a Frixion pen. Now the Frixion pens have a metal tip. I do not recommend using these on fabric because that metal tip is going to abrade your fabric. Now I know all the stories about this not coming out and all of that kind of thing, but what I want to tell you is if I take this fabric and I spray a layer of Best Press. Now you probably can't see it, but I've got my Best Press in one of these Mr. bottles, and I sprayed a layer just right in that area. I'm taking my iron and I'm pressing it. I'm spraying again. You can probably even hear that. And so I have put a barrier between my pen, my ink, my marker, whatever, and now I don't have to worry about that not coming out. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit about pens while I let this dry a second. Frixion now has what's called a marker, and you can see if I pull that up there, that has a felt tip mark or felt tip end on it, and so this is going to mark on fabric a whole lot easier. Because those of you that have been with this for a while, this is back to that metal pen. You would make a mark and you couldn't see it very well, so you'd make it again, you could see it kind of, and then you would scribble like this, and now I can finally see the mark, but I've done so much, it's definitely going to leave me a ghosting line. So when I go to press that out, you can see that white ghosting line. At least I can. I hope you can there at home. while I've got this here, I want to press this dry again because I want to show you that because I put that on there, when I make a mark with my Frixon pen, that's still warm, so I got to wait till that dries. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you the new ones. They're the fine tips. Absolutely love these. Don't use them when I'm doing a demo because they really are very fine and you couldn't see them. But I definitely want to be able to get those lines out. So I'm just going to take this again. You can see that. I would use it and do whatever I need to do. And then I'm going to wipe that away. Now I know some of you are going, she did it on a white background. Yes, I did. But even if I had done it over here, if I had made that so that I had put that best press on there, it acts as a total barrier. It's almost like putting a piece of wax paper between your marker and your fabric. So try it for yourself. Check out my little video demo so you can see what we did. We even actually put it in the freezer and brought it back and did that. Now while I was talking about my iron, I left one in a package so you can see this is the Mighty Steam Iron. And this is a little iron that takes, it's a travel iron. And the thing that I like the most about these is they don't shut off. And so this because it's a travel iron, is going to make it so it's really nice so that you can have it heated all the time. I keep one I have a TV tray and I don't want to take the time to move it so that you can see it, but I have a little TV tray right here beside my table. It actually slides under my table when I'm not using it, and I have my wool mat on it. I have an iron rest. If you're not familiar, there's all different kinds. The one that is on the website at Quality, I like the best because it's the square, or it's actually a rectangle, and I forget it has a cute little saying on it. But I set my iron on there, and it might be on there for 12 hours a day, right on top of my wool mat so that I can use it right there. Excuse me, I had to get a drink there. All right, any questions on that? I just want to make sure you knew how to use your markers and could get some good, like I said, I think you need to know how to do things and how to do them easily. We've talked about perfection tape. A machine with a needle up, needle down is a good thing to have, and a machine with a speed control. And while I'm mentioning speed control, this has been the ticket for me because I haven't even told you yet, but I am not a free motioner. I have tried, I cannot free motion. So some of you are in my camp, and it's not that I don't like free motion. I love what they do with it. I just can't do it. So with that being said, I found that if I put my machine at medium speed and I turn my foot pedal on the floor around to the back, and then I just press completely to the floor each time I use it, I'm going to get a good consistent speed because it's like a stitch regulator. I'm pressing it to the floor, but it's never going to go faster than half speed. So that's going to be something that is a good thing for you to try. And like I said, we're working with techniques first. We're not working with perfection in our stitching.
Julie would like to know, is there any difference in the wool mats?
The difference in the wool mats, I'm sure that there probably are differences. Some of them are white in color, some of them are gray. There are differences in the sizes. I actually use the one that's probably about 14 by 14, something like that, because it fits right for what I'm using as far as the little TV tray to sit right beside me. So it depends on what you're doing. I have Steady Betties, because most of you know what a Steady Betty is. It's a different purpose, and I have a bigger one of those because when I'm pressing a seam that's, almost 44 inches, I want a bigger one. So I have a longer one of those, but I haven't so much as seen that it's that important for me to have one of the huge wool mats. So, but I will tell you, I can't tell you the exact price, but I can tell you that the mats are at a great price on the site that all of the other products are on. And I haven't mentioned it yet. I think I told you that the table is $149, but everything that you buy today that is Westerly related is going to be so that you can, for the next, I think it's the next 6 or 8 days, if you put in West 10 for the code, you're going to get an extra 10% off of the Westerly Design products. So West 10, you're going to want to remember that so that you get an extra discount on those products. All right, let's draw for one more thing right now. I'm gonna be using this, so let me find, oh, it's around my neck because it's what's called a notions necklace. And a notions necklace looks like this, and I have my spacing gauge. I'm gonna be using it in a minute. When you get your spacing gauge, it's gonna look like this. Mine's like this so that I can demonstrate easily for you on the screen here and you're able to see it. If I just use this one, you really can't see it as well. So what is a notions necklace? A notions necklace is a necklace that you can put on and you push this little button and so this whole thing now comes off. Because if I had this around my neck, I would have to get my nose right down about my needle to use this, so I can take this off, use it, and then I can pop it back on. Now when I'm doing this, and I know I'm going to be using it a lot, I just leave it off most of the time. But you can use this for other things. You can have your blunt end scissors on there, you can have other things. I even have one that has my 3 different smart sticks on it with my embroidery designs. So you can put several things onto one of these. This just latches through there. So who's our first winner? We've got 3 of these to give away. Barb Baker. Barb Baker, you are going to get a notions necklace. All right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to give you this down and dirty, simple way that our templates work. You will notice we have a lot of different lines. On this particular template, you are going to have lines that are spaced right down the straight side that start out 1/2 inch spacing. In the middle, these are full inch, and then you go 1/2 inch again. And then these are 1/4 inch apart. So when I have this shape drawn right here, I'll try to do this a little bit sideways so that you can see it. I'm going to put my foot down so it straddles. So you can probably see right into there. So when you're getting down, let's go over here. Can you come over this way? Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put my needle down right in that line. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to actually show you how I start and stop and tie and that, but right now I just want to give you the basics. So anywhere that I put my template, I'm 1/4 inch away from that foot. So wherever I'm measuring, this is going to stitch 1/4 inch away. And that's because this is a 1/2 inch foot, so the needle is 1/4 inch in all directions. That's why it must be centered. So if I want to stitch straight down this line, I can tell that's not 1/4 inch. But when I get into like this, I can't really tell for sure. So that's where our spacing gauge comes in. This is an 1/8 inch, this is 1/4, this is 1/2, and this is a whole inch. So what I'm going to do is my needle wants to stay right in that line, so I'm going to put my 1/4 inch right on the line and push my template right up to it. And now I'm simply going to stitch right down the line, and I'm the one moving the fabric. So when people ask me, so what's the stitch length? It's me. The stitch length is me. What am I going for? I'm going for the stitch to be about a 2.5, just like a straight stitch would be. So now when I turn this corner, I'm not going to change directions of anything other than the fact that I want to make this 1/4 inch. So I'm putting that in there, and now I'm going to be stitching to the side. Now when I get over here, I think if I turn this just a little bit, you'll be able to see back to this point back here. I want to get right back to where I started. Not almost, but right back there. So I'm going to take my template and turn it, and this side of my spacing gauge needs to be flat against this side. So I'm not going to set it like that. I'm going to set it at an angle like this, so that the opposite side here is right in the spot where I want my needle to land. And you see, I just pushed that up so it was flat. And so now I'm just going to stitch right back there. And I get right back to where I started. Now I'm just going to go ahead and for the demo, cut my thread. And I'm going to pull this out so that you can see that I got right back to where I started here. Now this is chalk, so don't think of that as that was just my chalk. Now I can echo without even using a spacing gauge because I'm going to set my foot down right beside my line, put my needle in place. Whoa, it moved. That wouldn't have been good. There we go. And I'm going to set this up against so that it's right along the line. And I'm going to stitch until the front of my foot, the metal part, touches the line. And then I just go to the side, and when the side of the metal part touches the line, kind of went a little bit too far there on that one. We'll catch it up right back here. And I get right back to where I started. Now I'm going to take this and go out to the side so that you can see what it would look like to do an arc. So I'm going to come out to the side. I'm going to leave that in place, and I want to get right back down here to where I started. So the only way that I can do that, you saw me flip my template around, is I've got to match this up right down here so that it'll match up with my template. So I'm going to come right back down to that spot. Now if I want to make this a leaf, I want to measure so that clear out here is straight, although I'm not stitching out there. And I'm going to stitch. I'm going to come back down a little ways. I'm going to go out, come back down to that center line, and measure because I want to stay right on that center line. And I'm going to come back out. So yes, you can restitch over what you've already done. So we're going to come right back down to that center. So while I'm at this point here, I'm going to simply draw a line because I'm going to come down a little ways. And I'm just going to draw a chalk line to follow out to the side here.
Several are asking when this video will be aired again, or if they could watch it again.
You can watch it as soon as it's over. It'll be back up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to use the scallop template, this particular one. This is not a hard one to use once you know the secrets. Again, back to that bike with training wheels. So when you start this, you're simply going to use the lines on the template, and you are going to put that right on the line that you just drew. And so all I'm going to be doing is following across like this. Now, I did not believe in muscle memory. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me until I started working with templates. And when you start with this one, if you will just put your needle down and do what I'm doing right here, practicing what this feels like, it will make it so much easier for you when you get started. And that's the way I teach in my classes, and it's just surprising how easy it is for them to adapt to it. Now, I cannot do this one vertical. No way I can't do it vertical. But I can control it this way. So what I'm going to do is my needle's already in place, and all I'm going to do is go in and out. And you'll notice that each time it stops right on that line. I move it over, I line up my lines again.
I I love what Sophie said here. It's so satisfying to watch you sew this.
So I'm going to stop at the top because this design, being a clamshell or a scallop, I want to show you how to line up these clamshells. So when I stop on the top of the line, I don't need to draw another line. I'm just using the top edge of each of those pieces. So I move this up, and this time that little line that's on your template is going to be on the top of those scallops. So when I do this now, when I come back, they'll match up just like they're supposed to. And you stop at the top. I move up again, I line up, and now for those of you that are looking at this and going, well, that's not exactly lined up there, Donelle. That one's a little bit off. Well, it's not much off, but I'm going to show you how you can fix that. You stitch to the top, and you simply slide left or right what you need to, and then continue on, because no one's going to know that the first one has an extra stitch, or maybe even one less stitch. And then you're just going to keep going back and forth this way. And obviously, if you wanted to do it all the way across a quilt, you would stop when you were down here in the bottom and continue on. But that's how you do the clamshells. Now I'm going to show you a sample of the other side, but I'm going to cut this right here, and I'm going to come around and I'm going to show you how to use the remainder of this to make a border. So I'm going to take what I would call soup bowls now, or the bottom of that wave, and I'm going to take the hills of the template, because the template I didn't change directions, and I'm going to line those up, and then I'm going to push it up so that that first line that we've been using is at the bottom of that, and that these are straight across. Now whenever I put my foot down, I put it down away from my template and then bring it into place. Now if this were a design, I would take the time to pull my threads up. I'm going to show you that in a minute, but because I use the cutter, I'm not going to have any problems with just starting because my machine held my thread. Now if you don't have one that has a cutter that holds the thread, you would definitely need to pull that up each time. So here we are at the end, and there's our little border. So you can see how you can make that. I think that is called egg and dart is the name of that. That's called egg and dart. So now I've got my samples of my big ones there. It's right underneath. Yep, there you go. It's that one that you got in your hand. This is the large. If I did that clamshell on the large side, you can see there's the small ones. This would be the large. And then if I did that border, there's the small one, and this would be the large one. So you can see the difference in the sizes. And we have other clamshells in the catalog. It's just that this happens to be the ones that are in the sampler set. I also did this design with using that particular one. So there's all different kinds of things. I wish I had time to show you all the different things. Well, I wouldn't be able to show you all because everybody can create their own ideas, but a lot of different things. I am going to show you this particular one because of the fact that everything on this one, I'm going to turn back the hearts at the top so you don't see those because that's not, but everything on this was done with that very first template that I used. And that's all that you need is the arc. And this is a 12-inch arc. It's only a 6-inch ruler, but it's called the 12-inch arc. So everything that is on there, this is a wonky square. This is the wonky square done with the arc side. And so you can see there's a lot of different things you can do just by using that very first template.
Are you ready for another?
Yes, we're going to give another Notions necklace. And you dropped on the floor, and it is Dawn, I'm going to say Tennyson. Dawn Tennyson, you're also going to get a Notions necklace. All right. This next one is one that we do if we were at the store and you all had machines and you were there with us and we were all sewing. This would be one that you would do first. And a lot of people, once they see me do this, say, there is no way I could do that first. And the power to amaze yourself is always fun. So what I'm going to do is I have a thumbtack. It's just a regular thumbtack. I'm putting it through the center. And I'm going to bring it up from the bottom because I can see my hole right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and have that centered right in the middle there. And then this template is what is called the Spinning Wheels 36. Now this comes in a bunch of different sizes. This happens to be the one that comes in this set. Now over here you can see my pink tape because there's a gate. I have other things I use this for, and this is what are called ruler stickers. So when I get done, I'm going to show you the design that I use with these stickers here, but that's what those are for, so they mark a spot. Now there is also on this one a little hole that's going to fit right on top of my thumbtack. And up here there is an etching that's going to line up there. Now, I'm going to show you how I tie my threads on this one because that really is something that does not have to be hard. So I'm setting my foot down, and the reason I choose this template is because this takes a little extra step, and it's something that you might have to do. So I'm setting my template down. I'm bringing my foot into A, and if you have your templates handy, you can feel that like at A, there's just a little bit of a nick there. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stitching around and back to back to B, and we stop at B, and then we move our template, and notice that now B became A. And we stitch again, and we move on around this just like that. But when we first get started, we don't want to just have threads hanging out there, so I'm putting it right where it's supposed to go. I'm setting my needle down in my fabric, I'm bringing it out of my fabric, and I'm bringing the foot up so I can pull up on that thread. Now one of the supplies that was on there is to get some sort of a curved set of tweezers because you want to be able to reach underneath that foot and get those. Now I'm going to take my template off of my thumbtack. There's where my thread came up. And I'm going to show you that when I put that back down and right in that hole, I'm going to be able to have those. I wouldn't have needed to do that, but I wanted you to see that I have both of those threads coming out of that same hole. So what we're going to do is we're now going to hold on to these threads, stitch like I showed you, pushing around the outer edge. Think back to when you were in school and we didn't have all the fancy computers and whatever, and we had to trace letters, whether they were on like a ruler or you traced around a letter, or maybe even thinking about just when you were playing with your spirograph. You're just going to trace around the edge, and if you're using that speed control, and you're using it so you're pressing your foot completely to the floor, you're going to get the hang of how fast you need to move your hands. You'll notice I'm not rotating my fabric in any way. I'm simply turning my template. Always wait till your needle decides it's done. That's what happened to me on that first one that I did, that I got a little bit of a blip, is because I moved it. Now, I could continue on like this. You can't see it quite as well, so I'm going to move it. So back when I first started, like I said, I didn't have this, so I thought I knew what I was doing by going around. But I might get to the end and I might have 7 and I need a half of one. Well, then your design doesn't look good. But because of the way these lines are, I'm going to get right back to where I started. So my needle is right back in that spot. And what I'm going to do is I'm not cutting my thread. I'm pulling my needle up, pulling my foot up, and I'm going to pull this out. And I'm going to make sure that I cut and leave that long. And I'm going to take that thumbtack out. And here are all my threads except for the one that's on the back. So what I use is called a cinch needle. And this is the packet that they come in. I know they're available on the Quality website because I saw them on there. And this needle has, over on the one side, a little opening. So that's why they're called side threading. So I'm going to take all of these threads and just pull them in to that side threading. There we go. And now I'm going to take them and I'm going to take it right back down through that same spot that it came up from. Or you could bring the one from the top to the back, the bottom to the top. I think it's easier to go to the back. And so now I have all of these threads here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to split these. I've done it several different ways, and this is the way I've found to be the best. I'm going to split it into a group of 2 and 2. I'm going to tie my knot. I'm going to tie it again. And then I'm simply going to put it back in. And I'm going to go right into my fabric, right beside where I tied that knot, and slide it through there. And then at the end, I'm just going to give it an extra tug, and that knot goes right in underneath. So once that's done, I pull it even a little farther so it kind of wrinkles up my fabric and cut it, and then that other end goes back in too. So it makes it so much easier. I never have to thread the needle, and those are called cinch side threading needles.
Don't we have some of those to give away?
I believe maybe we do. So let me pull one out of the box here. Man, we're getting a lot in there. Keep sending them in, ladies and gentlemen. Mel Gillespie. Mel Gillespie, you're going to win some of the side threading needles. Now, had I left my thumbtack in there and I would put this on, I could now go back and instead of using that line to line up, I would have used the diagonal. So I would be putting one in the middle. I need my sample set of that. And this is what it looks like if I had done this set twice. So that's what you're going to get when you've done it twice. So there's a lot of ways that we can use this template. If I wanted to make this design, this would actually fit in a 6-inch block. If I wanted to fit in an 8-inch block, I use my straight edge and echo. And so that will now fit in an 8-inch. I don't think this will even fit all on the screen, but this will fit in a 12. And this is the same center, just with echoes around it. So you can make your designs grow. And I want you to see that this template, which I'm going to show you some other things, is this very same design. So they look nothing alike, but it's the same template. But instead of having a thumbtack, we simply used our needle and our foot to rotate around. That's 8 times, and this is 16 times. So a lot of different things you can use. This is the one I'm going to show you next, how we do a braid, because I want you to see how versatile our templates are. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my 12-inch ruler. And this is on the list too because I use this a lot. It's actually for centering because you can see the numbers go out left to right. But I use it a lot just because I want a longer line. So I'm going to take and I'm just going to simply draw a line here. Might as well draw it all the way. Don't know if I'm going to stitch all the way with that design, but maybe another design. And so I'm going to set that there. And when I put this template on, I am going to go all the way around. I'm not paying any attention to those A's and B's at this point. So I'm starting on my line. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and cut my thread first because that'll mean that it's held in place. Then I'm just going to put my needle back down in place, pull this cut thread out. That's just a little demo trick there. And I'm going to stitch around completely. And then I'm going back up to that blue spot. So right there, I showed you that arrow before. We might need to get just a little closer here so that you can see. There you go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this as a rocket, and I'm just going to shoot it straight up that line. So this line and the line in the back stay in the same place. And now I'm going to stitch around and come back to touch that line and go back up to this side. So I could have a line on there, but it's the same spot. Shoot that rocket up that line, go back this way, back to that line. So you can see how easily you can create a border with this. And remember, I told you this template comes in up to, I think it's like 8 inches. I have a whole set of them. And so there's a lot of things that you can do with this.
A lot of our ladies and gentlemen are saying in the comment that they've never thought about turning these around. So you're giving them lots of inspiration.
Oh, lots of things that they can do with the templates. And I'm even going to show you stitching line disc how you can decide what you want to do. Now what I'm going to do right here is I'm simply going to break this thread because you can see how that was done. And I just want you to see the versatility of the templates. And then I'm going to pick up my circle template. Tons of things we can do with a circle template. I'm kind of a circle crazy person, so I do a lot of things with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this back down. And again, because I broke that thread and held it in place, I just need to put my needle down. And when I sew a circle starts and stops in the same place. Well, if I wanted to do a border of circles, whew, that would be a long day. Circle, stop, tie your threads. Circle, stop, tie your threads. No, we don't have to do this. We're using a template. So I go back to the top. So I basically did a circle and a half. I slide my template forward, and instead of going to the right or the left first, this time I'm going to go to the right. And that way I'll get my other half a circle on the opposite side. And this makes our eyes happy. For the most part, it is not something that you want to put all of the double stitching on the same side. And this is not a design that I would want to do where I used a 30 weight thread so that it was like way heavy on one side. Now I'm going to show you how we make those little flourishes, and this is fun. This edge right here is 1/4 inch away from that line. So if I take this in and move it to that edge, now when I stitch, I'm an additional 1/4 inch away. And I come back to the line. I move it to the line, so I'm going to be 1/4 inch away. I come back to the line. I move it. I come back to the line. I'm back in that center. I'm coming up here. And oops, I went the wrong way first. I should have gone to the right. It's not a problem. I just shift and go back. So you can see how you can get a border of simply doing circles. If you wanted to embellish them, you can. You could embellish them the other way too. But this way, when you're looking at that, because I alternated ups and downs or left and rights, your eyes are okay with that. So that's a way that you can do that. Now, while I've got this circle out here, one of the fun things to do with this machine, or with this circle, is to show you how you can manipulate to get a smaller scallop. So, for example, that other scallop that I showed you was a 3-inch scallop or a 1-inch scallop. Well, this is a 2-inch circle. So all I need to do is on this inside, do half of it, move it over, do half of it again, and move it over. So you can see that if you have a bunch of circle templates, there's a lot of things you can do with those circle templates simply by being just a little bit creative. So that's pretty much the same scallop that I showed you before, only it's a different size. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you how we could do cross-hatching. So if I wanted to do cross-hatching, for example, like on my bag, I don't think you can see it very well on the back of that bag. Can you see that cross-hatching? So if you wanted to do cross-hatching like that, I am going to take my crosshair grid. I'm going to set it here, and I'm simply going to do 2 of the diagonals with my lines because I don't need to have a lot. Yeah, here's one you can see better, the cross-hatching. So I'm simply going to bring this down like so, and I'm showing you a lot of things here that you wouldn't get into for quite a while, but I know we've got those overachievers out there that are going to spend the next 2 days, especially if it rains, doing this. So I'm going to make as if this was the top, or this was the back of one of those bags, okay? So this is the back of a bag, and we are going to do cross-hatching on it. But we made it so that this is going to be, our fabric is bigger. So we're going to pretend our fabric is like a 1/2 inch bigger all the way around. So I'm just drawing a rough line because that's what's called our margin, and you're going to see how I use that. So I'm going to take my straight edge that comes with the foot, and I'm going to lay this on here. And you will notice that when I do it this way, I would be 1/4 inch away. Well, I want to keep it centered like I've got it. So I'm going to start out here in the outer margin. I'm going to set my foot down, and I'm going to put my needle down in there. Now you'll notice I can't get completely down to here. And that's why I like to have this longer ruler. And this is on there. This is a ruler I designed. You can put stable tape on the back of it. It's the same size as a template. And like I told you, you can use the low shank templates on a high shank machine. So this would be considered like the low shank height. So I'm simply going to start out there in the margin. Means I don't have to tie it because it's going to get cut off right up here. And I'm going to put my 1/4 inch there. And I'm going to come down to the other end. And what I'm going to do is, as I say, dance in the margin. So I'm going to dance over here because I want to do my first 2 lines and have them set up. And so now all I'm going to do is turn that because it didn't matter what happened in the margin. And I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to come down. And I just need to go out in that margin. Now I need to come over 1 inch because I'm going to do 1 inch wide. And so the 1/4 inch there means that I need 3/4 inch from here to here. Now this ruler has lines on it. 1, 2, 3. Boy, I guessed lucky that first time. I just need to go like 1/2 stitch. And I can line that up. But I'm going to show you a way that I think is easier. It is called using an echo guide. Now when we use echo guides, we can do all kinds of things. Megan, I think I have my circles, the lines of circles. Okay, so when I used it with my 2-inch circle, I got all of these different sizes of circles on there. So this was the original circle, that's 2 inches. And then I used the small echo guide, which is a 1/2 inch, inside my template. So this was here, and I'm going to put this big 1-inch one on here, and I'm going to set my foot. As you can see right here, I've got what's called an expansion slot, and I'm going to set this underneath here, and all I do is set my foot down, it picks it up, I push it down a little more, and then I pick it up and pull it up on that foot, because when I put this down, I still want to be able to move this. So now all I have to do, it doesn't matter whether it's with this ruler or another ruler, is I put my ruler on the line, and I come back down to here where I was, and all I have to do is follow that. It goes much faster because all I have to do is come down here until this is at that point. I line it up, and I'm going to come down. I'm going to come over. When this is at that spot, I line up my ruler, and I come up this way. And now, I haven't completed all of those, but I'm going to come in the margin till it touches the line here. I'm going to line this up, and you can sew backwards just as easily as you can sew forward. I'm about to knock off some stuff over here, so. And when I get up here, I'll be out in the margin. I come over until this is lined up, and I'm going to stitch right back down, because remember, we're going to cut everything off in that margin. So echo guides really allow you a lot of freedom, save you a lot of time. Instead of having to match up what my ruler does, I can do that with my different sizes. So who's going to win echo guides? April Rosenberg. April, if you're out there, give us a thumbs up. I'm going to cut my thread, and I'm going to raise the foot up. Well, let me try that again. There we go. Are we on? Someone said we may not be on. Everybody out there? Is anybody out there? Nobody's answering?
I had to get out, so I got to go back in.
Well, we're going to take just a second to see, because it wouldn't make sense. We can finish. Quality. Sew and back.
Looks like you're on. Go ahead and go.
Okay, thank you. I thought we were. So anyway, I did those lines, echo guides. That's the easiest way. Were you on there with echo guides? Okay, thanks. I'm glad some of you are commenting there so I can see that. So the winner of echo guides, I started to pull it and then I didn't. Yes, I did. April Rosenberg. Thank you for letting us know that you're out there, ladies. All right, so April Rosenberg, you won echo guides. And before I forget, let's do the last Notions necklace. And that is going to Becky Green. Becky Green is winning the Notions necklace. Sorry. I just sent it to her like an airplane. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a new piece of fabric. So we've got that one pretty well stitched up. And while I'm talking about that, what I do with my fabrics, these are simply fat quarters. It works the best. I like to practice on black, especially for showing you guys. I just use anything on the back. That as far as it's cotton fabric. But then what I do is after I've stitched all over this, I lay another piece of black on the front and stitch again. So you can get 2 times out of your your practice fabric, so your batting and your backing, you're able to use that a couple of times. Looks like Becky won. She's got it on there. It said woohoo. So good for you, Becky. All right, so what I want to show you now is how I do some designing real quickly, and that's with stitching line discs. So what I'm going to do is I have a tablet of paper, and if you're interested in any of this, you can go ahead and you can let them know what quality, and they can get these ordered from me. But this is a 12-inch pad, and half of it has markings for your crosshair already in there, and then the other half is just plain sheets. So I got to get back here to plain sheets. So you can see here where I was working with that design that I did before. So you can see that I played with this to figure out what I was doing. So let me just get my stitching line discs. They come in a packet like this. There are actually 8 different stitching line discs. You only need one. There are 2 of 4 different sizes, and I think you can see the different size holes. And I know that this is the one that I use, because I like to use a pen. It's like second to the smallest size. I like to use a pen that has this little stylus tip on it so that it hugs that when I put that down there. So this is like your foot, because if I was doing some designing with my template, and I'm going to show you this one and then I'm going to stitch it for you. If I was doing some designing with that and I just drew around the inside of the template, I would not be getting the same size. I would have the same design, but not the same size. So I've drawn a line here on my straight edge, and I'm going to set my template down here. I want to make sure I've got enough room, and I do. And I'm going to set my template down here, and I'm going to show you this cute little border that I played around with, and this is how I design. So I'm going to stitch around like that, because my foot is the plastic piece, my ink is my thread. I have now drawn exactly what it would look like. So I'm going to rotate this. I've got lines here that I'm lining up, and I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to turn it like that and go this way. And because I'm going to make this a border, I'm going to use this particular template to make my connection to my next little flower design. So I'm going like that, and I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to line that up, and then I'm going to do the bottom half. And then I'm simply going to go up, and I'm going to go down. So I'm creating my own little border here, and I didn't have to play on fabric. I can figure out what I'm doing right here. And this is where I'm starting. And this would be, and so right at this point, I can measure from here to here to see exactly how much room one set takes up. So in this case, it's almost 4 inches. It's 3 3/4 to be exact, from that point to that point. So all I would need to do would then to be measure my border, and I can do some figuring. Now that's more of an advanced class, but you can see how I can do that. So now I want to stitch that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my ruler, I'm going to make a long line, and I'm going to stitch that for you so that you can see how we can take something from stitching and something from drawing and stitch it out. So here's my line. I'm going to start over here on that line, needle down.
Sorry, Candace said that she's going to need to set up a food station in her sewing room because she may never leave now.
That's right. That would be a perfect way to do it. And I'll tell you what, my sewing keeps me from eating. So when everybody's been talking about being shut up and now their jeans don't fit and everything, fortunately, I've had the opposite problem, because when I'm in the sewing studio, it's not easy to get anything. And so I just sew and sew and sew. So It makes it really fun, that's for sure. So what I'm going to do, I figured she was going to say she needed a GoFundMe page, which may be true too, to get all the things you want. So I'm going to go around, and I will tell you it's easier to stitch these than it is to draw them, because I don't have to hold the needle and I don't have to hold the foot. And so the drawing is a good way to be creative, but it's actually easier to stitch. And even though I don't have the lines that you're used to, I have lines across here that allow me to do all of this. So stitching line disc and echo guides just broaden your horizons, and they're two very inexpensive products that we have available. So I'm stitching halfway, I'm flipping this around, lining it up, get my thread out of the way, and stitch the other half. Now see, I know there's people out there that are free motioners and they would just do something between there. I can't do that. So I have to have something that allows me to go from one place to the other. Now while I'm doing this, I want to tell you, when you get your machine set up, if you have skipped stitches or shredded thread, that means your foot needs to go lower. So when you're working to get ready to go, if you have skipped stitches or shredded thread, lower your foot. And when I say lower the foot, I'm talking about just like, the sheet of the thickness of a sheet of paper makes a huge difference. Now I'm going to show you how I play with this design. And I'm going to pull this in. I'm going to pull this down. Come across like this. Because some of these little things like this are just what make it pop. And remember, I'm going to the top here. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to line up. I'm going to do the one on the end. So I'm going to mention that we have the university on the Sew Steady website. And for those of you that want to get into a lot more of this, and whatever, check out the classes that Quality has, but go onto the website, the website for Sew Steady and see in the university. We have over 60 classes already that you can take at your own pace. And then we also have a lot of things that we're adding. You can even become a certified home quilter on that. So you can see on here what we've got. You can see the little addition and how much fun that is to do with being able to draw it out first. So next we're going to give away one of the green rulers, and I got to reach down in here. This is getting pretty full, you guys. We got a lot of comments and shares, which is great. And I have really appreciated having the time and opportunity to work with Quality to get all of this together. So Andy Reisenauer, I hope I said that correctly. You're the winner of a green ruler. And I think we've got 2 more prizes here. I'm going to go ahead and give it now. And the next one is going to be ruler stickers. And those are the stickers that I put on my rulers, and you're going to see how I use it here in just a second on my next one. So the ruler stickers are going to, I got to get down in here again. And, uh-oh, I dug so deep, I got several. Joanna Smith. Joanna Smith, you're going to win the ruler stickers. Woohoo! And I got one more after that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my crosshair grid again. And while she's looking for that for me, I'm going to go through a couple things real quick. I want to remind you of the table special, $149 for the wish table, regular $199. And then also, don't forget to use your West 10 as your discount coupon. And then on this list, I fixed this up so you can see. And this is an unbelievable deal that Quality is giving you. If you were getting the crosshair grid, which is this ruler right here that we use, and you are going to get one of the feet and the straight edge, and you're going to get a spacing gauge and a sampler set 1, the pattern book, which I didn't even mention yet, and you'll have to, I apologize, mine's a mess because I use it all the time, but this has 45 designs in it. So you're going to be able to take this book and you're going to be able to follow along. This is one that I did for you. This will show you how to do that. 45 different designs. So that has that in it. And it also has the stable tape. So all of that stuff is like a, seriously people, it is like a $230 plus value. And I couldn't believe it when I looked on the site. They have that whole ruler work kit. It's right on here. I'm not sure exactly. I should have marked it. The whole ruler work kit together is $119. Unbelievable price. The lowest I've ever sold it at a show is about $160. So that's an over $230 value for $119. It saves you putting all of these things that I've got marked here together. Everything that I've got marked is actually right in that kit. So get that, get the table, and you're ready to go. Get you some echo guides, some stitching line disc. I will show you, for those of you that already have some of that, this is another excellent deal. It's Amanda Murphy's Meadow Dance Kit. Some wonderful templates here. You can see all of those templates. It even has a feather template. It has a practice piece of fabric for you. The value on that is $257. It's now $149. So that's Amanda Murphy's Meadow Dance. So before I quit today, oh, I could just talk and talk and talk. And by the way, for those of you that aren't bored with this yet, I know you're not bored because this is so much fun. I will tell you, this is so relaxing when you're doing this. And it's hard to believe I say that because nothing would make me more exasperated than trying to do free motion. So this is very relaxing. I love it. I look forward to it. But you can join me at 2 p.m. Pacific time over on the Sew Steady site, because today's my day to teach a class there. So at 2 o'clock you can come back and join me for that. Now what I want to show you now is how we can do our kind of like flowers or whatever you want to do with it with our spiral template. Now you'll notice the spiral template has different lines on it. I have arrows here because I'm going to show you what I can do with those. I'm going to start out, and you'll notice that arrow right there. If I didn't have that arrow, I might not stop. So I'm going right over here. I'm simply moving this around, and now I need to be 1/4 of an inch away from the center, so I will end up in the center. So I match that up, and I come back to this spot here. Now I'm going to skip the next line, and I'm going to go over to here. So I'm going to line that up and go out to that line, and I'm going to turn this back in, and I'm going to measure here. I'm going to skip the next line and go to this line. So I'm simply putting that blue right on my line that I drew. Saves me a whole lot of hassle having that ruler line there, or that ruler sticker there. I'm back to the center, skip the next line, and come to this one. Turn this back around, and I know you can't see it, so let me pull it in here. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to get my scissors and snip this off. And so what I'm going to do is have the 4 diagonals that size, And then this time I'm going out to this one, clear out here. Now it's going to run into my other design over here, but that's okay for me. And I'm going to stop at that spot, come back, and again I want my 1/4 of an inch here. So obviously that should pretty much point to it. And this particular one is a whole lot bigger. Now I'm not skipping the lines on this one. So what I'm doing is I'm going to have a smaller one inside of a larger one. I have a class that I teach. It's called the One Template Wonder. And it's amazing. It's only using this template, and everything that's on the design is done simply with that template. I'll come over here and show you this one because this will be more in your field of vision. Megan, if you want to find my Simply Quilting, I'm going to show them that real quick so that they can have a look-see. So although it's not finished, you can see how we could make these bigger ones out around here. And if I had all of these done, how big that would be and how pretty that would be. So I'm just going to cut this thread and get this one out of the way. And I want to show you, this is a class that's in the university, and it's called Simply Quilting. Now I have a couple of samples over there in stages that I can show them. But this is done with 2 layers of fabric. And so what we do is we have a picker fabric underneath here. And so I have a sample here that I can show you what we did. So rather than just having a top fabric, a batting, and a backing, I have a second fabric here that I call my picker fabric. My top fabric has the Heat and Bond light on it, and I don't press it after I put that on there until I'm completely finished. So what I did was I did those designs, and then I go back and I cut them out. And so I'm sure that they carry at quality these type of scissors. They're called the 4 and I think 1/2 or 3/4 embroidery, and they have a curved tip but a very sharp to the point. And so what I do is I'm going to come in here so that you can see it a little bit better. I take a seam ripper, and when I'm doing this I can feel down in there so that I know whether I'm through 1 layer or 2 layers. Now the reason I'm showing you this is this will happen to you at some point. And so I've cut through 2 layers there, and I only want the top. So after I cut this away, I'm going to put, fray check on that, and that will hold that down in place. But these scissors are great because you can just cut right up with snips. Am I in their screen there? Mm-hmm. You just can cut right up with those snips. You do a lot of turning, so I actually don't do this at my machine. I go to a table where I can rotate this because I can snip that right out. And when I'm completely finished, then I press it down so that Heat and Bond holds that in place. So I've got a finished one here of that same design, only a little bit different fabric, so that you can see what that looks like. On this one I just did every other one of my feathers. I've got a mosaic design in here. If I pull this up, you can see it really well, but I didn't cut out everything. And then down on this feather, I actually did all of them, cut them all out. And so if you want to learn how to do that, you do not have to have tons and tons of experience. I've had people do this as their second project. And so this one here is the project that is in the university that will teach you how to do this so that you can learn Simply Quilting. I absolutely think it's amazing when you, and this is one of those that I actually drew with my stitching line disc first to figure out, and I use colored pencils. I go back and I color, and you can figure out what you want because there's a design in between here, but it's not cut out so you don't see it. So I hope this has given you an idea of all the fun that you can have with Simply Quilting with Westerly Design templates. Appreciate your comments, appreciate your joining, and I especially appreciate the opportunity to work with Quality. And so get your last questions in there in case we have some. We wanted to try and keep it right at 2 hours. So I have one more drawing. So that means I've got time for about 2 more questions. And this is for one of the rulers. And this is going to go to Judith Pace. Judith Pace, you're the winner of the ruler.
And they've been asking what ruler, what's the name of this?
This is a 12.5-inch centering ruler, I think is what they have on the site. The 12.5-inch centering ruler, it's normally $16, and I think they have it for 12 something. So it's a really good ruler to use for a lot of things. You can obviously see it's got the 1/4 inches marked here. It's got an 1/8 and a 1/4. I can't tell you all the different things I do with it because of the fact that you can cut with it if you need to. There's so many things. Any other questions? Well, thank you to Quality Sewing for allowing us to work together, and for everyone that attended. Just know that you can share this with your friends. You can also come back and watch again. You might even want to have your friends over and have a watch party. So we'll see you next time somewhere. If I see you at a show, please introduce yourself. Again, thank you to Westerly and Sew Steady. I'm Donelle McAdams, and we'll see you soon.